In this video, I'm going to be talking about renting versus owning. And I'm going to be showing detailed numbers on what it looks like to own a home. And I'm going to be comparing it to renting. And if you save and invest your money in the right places, on what that difference could be if you actually rent. And why it's completely false to say that renting is worse than owning a home. Make sure you watch until the end of this video because I'm going to be showing some concepts that you may not have heard before and different types of alternatives of what you could do with the excess money that you save from renting and how you could maximize that and actually have more in terms of overall net worth by just renting. So make sure you watch until the end of this video to get the full value. And if you like content on personal finance and how to invest in different sorts of financial concepts, make sure you subscribe to this channel, Financial Ownership, and hit the like button if you enjoy videos like this. There is actually one scenario where owning will always beat renting, so make sure if you want to learn about the most popular way to own a home, make sure you watch the entirety of this video as well. So now let's get into this. The main argument when it comes to owning versus renting is that when you own a home, when you're contributing towards a mortgage, at least you're building equity towards a home. Versus when you're renting, you're just contributing money in terms of rent and you don't have any equity built and it's just a waste of money, quote unquote, is what people would say. But there's actually three main reasons on why that's wrong. And the first reason on why that's wrong is for the first 10 to 15 years, most of the money that you're contributing towards that mortgage is going towards interest payments, not towards equity of your home. I'm about to share my screen and show you exactly what I mean. So what you see right now shared to my screen is basically a mortgage amortization calculator. And basically what it's showing is if you get a home price at a certain amount, which I have at $350,000, and you say your down payment, you put down 10%, which is a $35,000 down payment that you put in for a home like this, and an interest rate of 5%. And now what we're going to be looking at is the amortization schedule, or the mortgage payments that you're putting into this home, and you're going to see the breakdown between the interest and the principal. And if you look at year one, you could see that the interest is about $15,000, a little bit over $15,000, and the principal, which is the equity that you're building, is $4,600. And you could see for the next year it's still around the same, and you're still putting around about the same amount of principal. And if you keep scrolling down into a calculator like this, you could see it isn't until year 17 where the amount of money that you're putting in towards this mortgage goes more towards the principal than towards the interest. So basically for 17 years beforehand, you're paying more in interest than you are in terms of putting equity in the home. For the first 10 years, most of it is going into interest payments. It's not actually building you any equity. So in a way, you could say that's throwing money away because you're not really using any, you're not really getting too much value just paying off interest, right? And that's why it's important to understand what you're doing when you're getting a mortgage. The mortgage payment would be around $1,690 per month for a home looking like that. And the ending value of that home would be about $1.1 million after it's all said and done when everything is paid out. So you would still end up with some sort of positive at the end in terms of what you ended up spending and putting and contributing towards that home in terms of equity. This is considering that the home has had an average appreciation of about 4%, which is around the average appreciation of homes. But too many people just look at that and say, look at that, okay, I end up having $1.1 million worth of equity. So this is definitely better than renting, but that's not necessarily true. One thing I didn't talk about was property taxes and insurance and maintenance that you would probably are going to have to end up having to pay. And also like things like mowing your lawn and all these other things that you wouldn't have to pay if you rented. These are things that would be expenses to you that I'm not even calculating. But at the same time, if you're smart with what you do in terms of investing and saving, the difference in terms of the money that you have after you rent, you actually could end up making more money from just using your money smartly by renting than you can ever have just by having like a single family home. And I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean by that. But I didn't make this video that detailed. Maybe in the future I'll show extremely detailed calculation in terms of taxes, insurance, and all the other different types of things that you would pay in terms of a house, in terms of expenses, to show you a detailed overview on why buying a house in terms of as an investment isn't as much as people kind of hype it up to be, and it's not necessarily it's not really meant to be an investment. It's meant to maybe have more space to have a nicer lifestyle, but it really isn't an investment move, and there's better things you could do with your money if the purpose is just to own a home to live in it. If you took that same money that you were going to contribute to, say, a home in terms of a mortgage, what you can do is use a special design life insurance policy and flow basically your rent income in that life insurance policy and then borrow from it. Some of you may be asking, why would I put my money in a life insurance policy and then borrow from it right away? Because depending on the type of policy you use, depending if it's designed for private banking, what you can do is get an average rate of return of say 6% from your policy and borrow from the insurance company at a cost of 4%. And basically you could pay for your rent that way. And also you could also use that money to pay for investments, expenses, and other things. But just to keep it simple, I'm just gonna show what it would look like if you just paid your rent money with using a specially designed insurance policy, and then afterwards using that money that you use from your insurance policy to make investments into low-cost index funds, and how basically just by doing those two things, you're going to end up having more money in your insurance policy and your index funds in terms of equity that you built in both of those places than you would have in your home if you just ended up buying a home and just paying a mortgage like that. So what I'm showing now is basically if you save your money in a place like a insurance company, depending on the insurance policy that you use, you could earn an average rate of 6% and borrow at a cost of 4%. So essentially you're making 2% on everything that you're spending in terms of investments, expenses, rent, or whatever. So let's say that you put that same money into this insurance policy first versus putting it in towards a down payment. And let's just say you put in $20,000 in terms of what you put in to start off this insurance policy that you're saving in. And you're just contributing in monthly into this policy. Let me remind you that when you use specially designed policies, what you actually have access to is basically a majority of the money that you put in. It's basically 80 to 90% of the money that you put in terms of premium into an insurance policy. Depending on how it's designed, you actually can access that amount of money to take care of your bills, expenses, and investments and whatever. And if you do that, contributing into this policy for 30 years, earning a 2% rate of return on basically $20,000 every single year, because normally you wouldn't be able to earn on money that you spend, but because you're leveraging it from an insurance policy first, you're able to do that. And it would work actually if you had a mortgage too as well, but I'm just showing the difference on what you can do with your money if, say, you didn't own a home. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're wasting money because you're renting. You just have to be smart with your money. And you end up accumulating about $859,000 just by using a strategy like that, earning 2% on everything that you're spending, whether it's investments, rent, or whatever. And also, this allows you to make interest on the same money twice. So what you can do now, after putting your money into an insurance policy like that, you could earn interest from your insurance policy and also investments. So what you can do is open a Roth account, say from Fidelity, where you can open a free Roth account and get low-cost index funds that give you exposure to the stock market. So basically, you're getting tax-free income from two places. You're going to basically accumulate a certain amount of money in your insurance policy where you don't have to pay any taxes, and you're also going to accumulate money from your Roth account where you don't have to pay any taxes later on either. And basically, if you're able to contribute, say, $500 for that 30-year period of time that you would have been contributing towards that mortgage, you could accumulate about $680,000, getting an average rate of 8% over that 30-year period. That's basically potentially how much you could accumulate just by investing in index funds along with using the strategy that I just talked about. So basically you have a slightly over $1.4 million that you would have just by using these two strategies versus the $1.1 million that you would have had just by having a home where you just basically built equity by putting in money in terms of mortgage payments. So it's really not true that when people say that renting is a bad thing. It depends what you do with the excess of your money. The problem that people come and arrive with is that what they do is they end up spending the difference of what they make in terms of renting. They don't actually end up investing and saving it in the ways that I'm talking about. If you're smart with investing and saving your money, then you probably are going to make more money from just renting than you are from owning a home. But I understand people want, say, a bigger home to have a nicer lifestyle and things of that sort. That's a different story. But if you're talking about in a standpoint of purely, is it a waste of money to rent? That's not necessarily true. There is one case where owning a home will always be better than renting, and that is when you get a multi-family home. Because basically what you can do is you could live essentially for free, build equity in your home, and do the same things that I'm talking about. These concepts work regardless if you have a home or you're renting. You just have to have some excess money in order to implement some of these strategies. And for the insurance policy, it's just a better savings alternative than a bank, because you could earn money on what you're spending versus a bank. They're not going to give you any interest. And if you look at what banks do, banks put a majority of the tier 1 assets in cash value life insurance because they're able to get much better rate of returns than, say, saving in the bank, ironically. So if you want to learn more about the strategies I just described in order to improve your finances, you can click on my link tree below and book a free discovery call with me to ask me any questions, or you can leave a comment and make sure you like this video too as well, and ask me any question you want in pertaining to what I just talked about, or anything in terms of videos I may have talked about in the past. So as always, if you found some value at this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I post videos like this every single week. So if you're into financial content and want to learn about ways to improve your finances, make sure you follow this channel, Financial Ownership. Thank you.